we shift our attention towards the deteriorating railway infrastructure. The Road Freight Association has previously emphasized the urgency for expediting improvements in railway and ports, in fact, citing a greater need for efficient transportation that surpasses the capabilities of the trucking industry. We're now joined by Gavin Kelly, who is the CEO of the Road Freight Association. Gavin, thank you for making the time this morning. Let's begin with the need for efficient transportation that surpasses the capabilities of the trucking industry. What does that picture look like right now as you and I speak?
William, good morning to you. Good morning to all your viewers on this cold and frosty morning. I think that's our greatest challenge, isn't it? If you look at that infrastructure, it looks as if we've been through a war. It looks like one of those scenes from a movie of the apocalypse where the world is absolutely devastated. And for us in the trucking industry, people might think, oh, we really, really enjoy that. We're celebrating that. We can take all the goods, but that's not how it works. What is important is that rail needs to play its role in terms of transportation. And rail has a number of major commodities or tasks that it needs to fulfill. One of them is passenger transport, and I'm sure that's not what this is all about. It's also about moving bulk goods along long distance lines, along routes where road transport would not be the better option. And there are always scenarios where road transport is not the better option. But we cannot continue to have a rail infrastructure that looks like that picture.
And obviously, Gavin, one cannot help to compare the two, right? From where you're sitting, you're representing the Road Freight Association, but I imagine when we talk about road freight in comparison to rail freight, there has to be one that would be preferred. How would you paint that comparison for us?
William, I think what we need to understand as a country is that road and rail shouldn't compete with one another. Over and above a client wanting to use the best transport, and the best transport isn't always the cheapest, but the important thing is road and rail shouldn't compete with one another. They should complement one another. So you will always have either sizes of cargo or types of cargo that will go by road because it is the best option for that cargo. And obviously you can't build a railway line to each and every retail center or each and every little depot. But where you can, you need to get rail to run masses of cargo to decentralization or to depots, to distribution centers. And from there, then the road would play its role in various sizes of trucks. So really, that's the model that we need to establish in this country. And then obviously, we need to look after our rail network. We can't, every 10 or 30 years, let's say, suddenly start rebuilding a rail network from scratch. We just can't afford that.
And speaking of that affordability, Gavin, we keep hearing from the Ministry of Transport that budgeting is a huge factor when it comes to fixing the problem. Where are we on that right now? I mean, how much money do we realistically need or budget is required to fix this problem?
Well, William, I think somebody needs to go along every single track or mile of railway in this country and come up with a figure. For me, it's going to be a thumb suck now. I don't think we're in a couple of billion. We're probably in a couple of 100 billion if we want to really fix the rail network and get it back to being an efficient service. There are two important things that have happened in the last couple of months. The first is, and probably the most important, is that there is a presidential logistics crisis committee. So the president has got involved. We're looking at how logistics is done in this country. We're taking the decisions to focus on those bits of logistics that we need to get working. And that's an important step. The second thing is that the Minister of Transport is, I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing, is going to inherit Transnet and all of the SOEs involved with rail. So that for the first time in a very, very long time is going to fall directly under the Minister of Transport. You're not going to have 2 or 3 different departments looking after the rail network, and that is going to allow for a lot better coordination, and hopefully we can start getting rail running again.
And Gavin, I'm going to ask the next question very bluntly, and it's short. Is it fixable?
Anything is fixable, William. It just depends on how deep your purse is. Yes, it is fixable. What we're going to need to do, like the old African proverb, is eat the elephant bite by bite. We're going to need to fix those bits of corridor that we need to get running. So, for example, the Durban to Johannesburg corridor needs to be fixed, needs to make sure it runs efficiently, that we can actually take the goods on that rail like the customers need. We need to come up with a workable proposal or workable plan that is going to ensure that the railway lines are run efficiently. And that might mean we need to get private sector far more involved in terms of running the rail network than it has been in the past.
And before I let you go, Gavin, I mean, we're asking this to our viewers as well. Would the reduction of the weight in terms of the freight on the road that is being carried by the trucks have any difference, right? So if we're talking things like 10 tons and we reduce that, would that help look after our tar for a longer period so as to move everything over to rail? Would that be a solution at all?
Well, William, it would be part of a basket of solutions. We're not going to be able to implement it now. And one could have a discussion on what that weight or mass of the cargo would be. But definitely, once rail started to play its role, we could find that we could get a fair amount of that type of cargo that wears our roads down, off roads onto rail. So like the bulk ores, the coals, the manganeses, and the chromes. There will always be time-sensitive cargo that might be as heavy as 25, 30, 40 tons that won't necessarily hurt the road, but is going to be on shorter distances. So there is a place for that, but I think that's far down the road or down the track at this stage.